Hi there, I'm Rob. Welcome back. And if you're watching this video, well, I think you're pretty swell. So what I want to talk about today is Nintendo Directs. That's right, everyone's favorite recurring topic that is always doing the news and conversation cycle, every 2, 3, 4 months, right? The typical standard cycle that we expect a new Nintendo Direct to show up. Every one of us who are Nintendo fans and game fans and people who look forward to Nintendo Directs start getting excited about the next new thing. And look, man, I'm the same as all you guys. I love a good Nintendo Direct, and even when a Nintendo Direct turns out to be bad, the hype and the excitement before we actually watch that Nintendo Direct is always a lot of fun. It's really a pretty cool thing that Nintendo has created and baked into their business model and their hype cycle over the past, almost 12 years, I think, since the original Nintendo Direct, I think back in 2011. And love it or hate it, there is always a huge amount of discourse when it comes to Nintendo Directs. Whether you're talking about people excited about them or mad at people excited about them, whether you're talking about the content and the Directs themselves, or whether you're talking about people's reaction to the Direct after we see one, we always see a lot of people going after each other about who should feel what about the Direct. I think I speak for a lot of us when I say that one of the more frustrating elements to Nintendo Directs and people's reactions to them is when we see people react to a Direct after it's aired, and you've got some people who loved it and some people who hated it. There's always people in the middle for sure, but it's usually the two vocal sides, I loved it or I hated it, that start going after each other and yelling at the other group for not feeling the exact same way as they do. I don't understand it. Look, I've seen a Nintendo Direct that I've loved that other people haven't. I've seen a Nintendo Direct that I did not like that other people loved. And yes, I've shared my opinions on if I loved or hated it, either on Twitter or in my own YouTube videos. And sure, I've expressed, I guess, surprise when other people or large groups feel differently than me, but the idea of literally going at each other's jugular over the fact that we don't all feel the same is just mind-numbing to me, because by its very nature, a Nintendo Direct is a collection of a variety of things. And in theory, if we see 20 to 30 of those things being video games, in any given Nintendo Direct, something is almost for sure going to appeal to some person, and maybe there's a bunch of those things that appeal to people, or maybe there's only one or two of those things that appeal to people. But it's not, you're never going to see a Nintendo Direct where 100% of the content appeals to 100% of the audience. It's never going to happen, and for some reason, as the years go on, and as the Nintendo fans keep going and coming and going, no one can get it through their heads that you're never going to please everybody. So I think all that matters is if you can watch a Nintendo Direct for yourself, find the things you like, ignore the things you don't care for, and just focus on that. That's all we need to do. I will say it's okay to form an opinion of an overall Direct also. Again, I do that on YouTube and on Twitter, and I'll say, I think that was a good Direct, or I think that was a bad Direct, or I fall in the middle. So we can form opinions about the entirety of a show, but at the end of the day, you just focus on the things you like, you ignore the ones you didn't like, and sure, we can have conversations about it, but just other than that, just let it be. However, the larger Nintendo Direct topic at hand today is whether or not it's healthy for us to be hyped for Nintendo Directs. And that is a conversation that I think we've all seen going around the past couple of days, and I like to chime in sometimes when these things are happening. And whether it's people on Twitter who are excited about a Direct, or people on YouTube who are excited about a Direct, or the people on Twitter and YouTube who are mad at people who are excited about a Direct, there's just more discourse going around. And so now the general, I think, conversation we're seeing is people debating whether or not it's safe or healthy to be excited about the mere idea of a Nintendo Direct. And it is a tricky topic to navigate, mostly for the reasons I talked about in the beginning of this video, because it's a landmine of opinions. It's seriously just tons of people on both sides of the fence having strong opinions where they won't budge and they won't listen to anyone else, and so then everyone starts fighting. So I'm just going to tell you my basic thoughts on this very idea. Is it okay for people to get excited and hyped about a Nintendo Direct even before one has been announced? And while there are reasons why it can be frustrating, and I think a lot of people maybe mishandle their hype and misrepresent the situations, by and large, from a high-level view, I think it's completely okay for people to get hyped for Nintendo Directs and to expect Nintendo Directs and to predict when a Direct is going to happen or the things we might see in a Nintendo Direct at any given time. Even right now in January of 2023, when there is no confirmed Direct, but plenty of people expect there to be one right around the corner. In fact, I kind of also expect one to probably be right around the corner. But as I said, I think it's important that we understand that some people are maybe not the best at handling their hype appropriately. And that does get exacerbated if they happen to be someone who's like a YouTube personality or what have you. Because, and I don't really know too many or see too many people that do this, but I know that it's out there. I kind of steer away from following or associating with people who I think are maybe not responsible with how they handle these kinds of conversations. But I know that it's out there, and I know it's part of what riles people up and why people are even riled up right now about this very topic. And so it is possible to go too far with your hype and too far with your predictions, and it is possible to state your hype or predictions about a Direct as if it were fact in a way that's almost purposefully misleading people. And when you do that, and you irresponsibly set your audience's expectations too high, they get mad when those expectations aren't met, and they take it out on other fans, or they take it out on Nintendo, or they take it out on the companies making these games. And then it just becomes a mishmash of crap, because people, again, just aren't responsible, right, is kind of the key phrase here, with how they handle their hype and their predictions. And again, if they're a personality online, on YouTube and Twitter and whatever, who shares and gets that stuff out there, that's when it becomes potentially problematic. I think that's maybe another key word in this whole conversation, is if it's even problematic to be hyped for Nintendo Directs. And I think it only is if people mishandle their hype and how they present it to their audience. But let's be real, man. If you're just a regular fan, even if you are a YouTuber or an internet personality, you can still be just a regular old fan of gaming or Nintendo or anything. That's exactly who I am. I've got my YouTube channel. I've got an audience that follows me and watches most of my videos, but I'm also still just a regular guy who's a regular old fan. And those people like me, and I think most of you guys watching, we can just expect a Nintendo Direct at the typical cadence that Nintendo tends to do them. We can get hyped at the prospect, we can make predictions and theories, and we can be responsible and healthy with it. I think that that is most people, okay? It's a classic case of the vocal minority being a bad representation of the larger community. And if I'm being honest, I think most people can handle things well. I know whenever the next Direct happens, we're gonna see the people that say, it was great and you're stupid if you hated it, or they're gonna say, it was terrible and you're stupid if you liked it. We're gonna see the same BS the next time this next Direct does happen. But I really truly think that most people, again, myself and most of you, because I know I cultivate a smart and responsible audience, 99% of you I think are that, we can handle our hype responsibly. And we can say, hey, there's probably a Nintendo Direct in January or February, and maybe it's going to show these things, and we can just talk about it, and we can get excited about it, and we can just say, it's going to be great, and I hope I enjoy it. Lest I forget to mention that the actual hype around Nintendo Directs and whatever their new announcements could be at any given moment is actually part of the fun of being a Nintendo fan and part of the fun of following the company. We all know Nintendo is unique and they do a lot of things that make them unique, whether it's their game development, whether it's their hardware development and their weird, quirky ideas and strange controllers, or whether it's the fact that they basically pioneered the idea of direct messaging video presentations to their fans and to their audience. I mean, a lot of companies do that nowadays, and we've even seen gaming showcases like E3 and Summer Games Fest and whatnot kind of become that. And that's not even including the way the pandemic kind of forced some companies to do that. It actually started even before the pandemic. Nintendo creating the very ideas of direct presentations is part of that thing that separates them from the pack. And even though they're all, you know, competing with each other and they're all playing in the same sandbox, that sandbox being the gaming industry, and they're all fighting for the same kind of gaming dollar from us, the consumer, it's what makes it fun to follow Nintendo, and it's the reason why, despite the fact that I love Sony and Microsoft and I own all the competitors and I play on everything, I still mostly love Nintendo and following them and discussing them on my YouTube channel, because the idea of their hype cycle is just more interesting and fascinating. I do, of course, also prefer their games and franchises by and large to the competition, even though I love a good Sony or Microsoft franchise. I love God of War, I love Last of Us, I love Halo, I love Gears of War, but I also just love Nintendo stuff. So you add into that the coolness around their interesting Nintendo Direct hype cycle and their E3 hype cycle when E3 happens. And it's just why I think a lot of us over the years, or decades in my case, have fallen in love with Nintendo and following their news and announcements, is because that is the fun of being a fan of their company. And so I think it's silly for people to try to take that away right now when all a lot of folks are doing is just predicting and getting excited about a theoretical Nintendo Direct. Yeah, it's silly there isn't a Nintendo Direct to get excited about right now, but, you know, it's just a bunch of fans, for the most part, having fun. Of course, we get into different territory where people try to leak things that they say is inside information, or people try to start unsubstantiated rumors. And I think that stuff is always tricky. And I mean, I've spent 9 years on YouTube talking about things that are rumors or that people are claiming are leaks. Like, I definitely discuss it from my lens as a fan who has a YouTube channel. But I still just want to say that adding things claimed as leaks and rumors does muddy the waters. We even saw that happen last year a few times. And when we talk about people being responsible or irresponsible with their hype and their presentations to their audience, well, I think leaks and rumors are part of that. I'm not saying they should necessarily go away. I'm just saying people who claim that they have a leak or a rumor need to be a little bit more careful with how they share it and get it out there. And more than even that, I think those of us who are in the position to cover and discuss it like to an audience need to be a little bit more careful about how we do it. So I'm biased to myself, as any normal person would be. I like to think that I've always handled, maybe not always, but the majority of my time on YouTube, I think I've handled how I discuss things that are leaks and rumors and conversations around Nintendo Directs pretty responsibly. I feel pretty good about how I've approached it, right? I'll discuss things that I'm predicting or discuss things that people say are leaks or whatever and say, hey, my prediction might be wrong, but here's what I believe. Or, hey, this is a leak and it could be wrong, but if it was true, maybe it means this. I really think that my approach has mostly been that. I'm sure I've slipped up a few times, man. I've been on YouTube for 9 years, you guys, so I'm sure you could find something from 7.5 years ago and maybe I did it not that way. But in general, and especially the last many years, in the Switch era for sure, I feel pretty good about how I've approached these kinds of conversations and my hype towards Nintendo Directs, or my predictions when a Nintendo Direct might be right around the corner, but it hasn't been confirmed, and so everyone starts talking about it. Right now, to kind of focus this back in on the main point here, right now we've seen a couple of weeks of people making videos talking about Nintendo Directs, and there's been no sign, not hide nor hair, of a Nintendo Direct or an announcement from Nintendo or any other gaming company. It technically is people kind of making it up out of thin air. The only thing we have to go on is history, and the history says in most quarter ones, right, January, February, and March, Nintendo does tend to have a Nintendo Direct to set up the upcoming year. And yes, that's true. So all we've seen is people assuming based on that history that there's going to be a Direct, and people have been making these videos. And while I'll agree they're making videos based on absolutely nothing because Nintendo Direct topics are an easy thing to discuss and get views on, hello, I'm technically doing that today, I don't really think it's all that problematic. You know, at least the people I know and I associate with and the few videos and conversations I've seen out there from people who I like and trust and follow, I think for the most part, these conversations are being handled completely fine. It sometimes is up to the audience to know how to hear this information and also react appropriately, right? So bottom line is I think it comes down to a shared responsibility from the people who are leaking and rumoring things, the people who are covering it and presenting it to an audience, and the people who are the audience receiving the information, and everyone just being responsible with how they handle their hype for a theoretical Nintendo Direct. There truly is no right or wrong way to handle these things and to handle our hype, you know. I'm not trying to be the internet police or the YouTube police or the Nintendo Direct police. I am not trying to be your dad, and I'm not trying to give you guys a lecture. I am just sharing my personal viewpoint and my personal perspective. You may agree with everything I've said, or maybe you disagree with everything I've said. That's okay. That's the nature of being a YouTuber and a content creator and putting your opinions and your perspectives online. You've heard my 2 cents. Now you get to share yours. You either agree or disagree, but there is no right or wrong way to feel about Nintendo Directs or to get hyped for them. I just see people just getting split again about hyping Nintendo Directs, and there isn't even a Nintendo Direct in the news to talk about. I think it's kind of silly. I think everyone needs to chill out and settle down. I know here I am making my own 15-minute video about Directs, but I'm more focused on how people hype up Nintendo Directs. So I just think everyone needs to chill out, and let's just wait and see what happens in the coming weeks.